Well, hello and welcome to my presentation of Universal Design for Learning, the legalities and implications of it. So, here we are just looking at the legal provisions of IDEA and No Child Left Behind. So, in 1975, Congress passed FAPE, Free and Appropriate Education, in the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. In 1990, it was reauthorized as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and this was for specifically children with disabilities. They have access to the same curriculum as general education students and to the least restrictive environment. In 2004, it was aligned to work with No Child Left Behind. Now, No Child Left Behind was passed in 2001, and schools are responsible for all students, including those with disabilities, to have opportunity to score proficient on the state standards and assessments. Test scores were legally mandated to be 100% proficient by 2014 for all students, including those with disabilities. So I wanted you to notice that I highlighted those two different passages. It's just a slight difference in the two different regulations. So who's included in all students? Well, with IDEA, it applies only to students with disabilities, and No Child Left Behind applies to all students, and there are many subgroups in No Child Left Behind, but it also includes assessments and monitoring of students with disabilities, and this was really new at that time. So that highlights their differences, but here let's look at what links them together. So both look at the involvement of students with disabilities in general education, the progress of them, and the outcome and evaluation. So district obligations are to establish goals for children with disabilities that are in line with the state's definition in the AYP. Now, an IEP must include a statement of a child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. Also in the IEP, there must be a statement of measurable annual goals, including academic and functional goals. And there also must be a statement of special education and related services, and which supplementary aids and services there were for the child. The state and district obligations are that students must be included in assessments with appropriate accommodations. And those must be stated in the IEPs. And then state and districts must report and make available to the public any information concerning the number of kids with disabilities that participated in regular assessments. The state obligations are to establish performance goals for students with disabilities, also to establish performance indicators to assess progress toward achieving the performance of those goals, and also to provide annual reports on the progress of the state and of children with disabilities in the state toward meeting those performance goals. So how do the legal provisions impact practice? Well, professional development is needed to learn how to support students with disabilities in the general education classes. There is an increased number of students with disabilities in public school, and the practice is changing from mainstreaming to inclusion. A focus of performance on high-stakes assessments can have negative effects on students with disabilities, especially if consequences are tied to performance. The models of classrooms are changing. There's more co-teaching and strength-based curriculum. There's more project and inquiry-based learning and less traditional classroom structures of education. There's more co-teaching. Those models are being implemented widely. And I feel like we're in a time that we are reevaluating what our best practices are to really access all students. But I wanted to make a side note and say that I have noticed how practice has changed since the repeal of No Child Left Behind and the adoption of ESSA, every student succeed at. So I wanted you to just take a look at this. I think this really explains how universal design can support all kids. So just take a moment to read. When we clear a path for people with disabilities, we're actually clearing a path for more students, for all students. I wanted to just talk about quickly when I was working as an ELD coordinator and about how at that time we were telling teachers, surprise, English learners are not in special classes. English learners are going to be in the general education classes with everybody else, and we're going to teach you strategies and ways to differentiate your instruction for your English learners. And so many teachers came up to me and said, no, it's just not going to work. But over time, what those teachers realized was that the supports that we put in for English learners helped more than just the English learners. And that's where I feel that we are right now. A universally designed approach will enhance the abilities of teachers to allow students with disabilities access to academic materials because it offers multiple means of representation. And then this means that content is presented to students in many different ways through words and pictures. Also, teachers have access to mobile devices and assistive technology. UDL supports all students by offering students multiple means of representation, expression, and engagement. It begins with student strengths and interests. UDL utilizes multiple intelligences and brain research to support all learning styles. Every kid learns differently. It's our jobs as educators to help them learn the best way they can. As policies change, funding changes, and that's going to affect our practice in the classroom. So as ESSA funding has placed monies toward professional development and creating assessments, the focus of where we go as districts is going to change. As funding changes, the practices are going to change to match those. The model of special education is different now. There's not necessarily a special education classroom anymore. So that means those educators and instructional aides are pushing into the classroom. And with that, they're not supporting just the kids on their caseload. They're supporting all students. Thank you for listening to my presentation.